What just happened? How would you describe that comeback and what the guys were able to just do?
I think Berger and Bell are just part of the club now. We've had some crazy walk-off ninth inning wins, come from behind wins all year, and these guys don't stop believing. It's a thing in that clubhouse. It's a thing in the dugout. The guys that we acquired, they believe in it. There's just no stop. We did that against some really good arms too. It wasn't just some guys just some random bullpen arms. I mean, those two back end guys are real dudes, and the fact that they did that with Yuli and Bell obviously beating out that throw, running hard down the line, and I thought the De La Cruz at bat was excellent, passing the baton. You want to be the hero sometimes in that at bat, and you want to be the guy. And for him to not expand and pass the baton, something that Brownie talks about all the time, and give it to Berger, and for Berger to do that, I mean that was an unbelievable win, and just super proud of those guys.
You mentioned it. We've obviously seen the comeback magic throughout the course of the season. When could you start to feel in that bottom of the ninth when you guys were building that inning that, okay, we've got a shot?
Probably that Bell at bat is probably when, because we've seen, when Hicks threw it away, the Cardinal game, and then that happened, and you're kind of like, again, when you do it earlier in the season, you believe you can do it again. And that's what's happening is once we get something going, do I wish we wouldn't always wait to the ninth? Yeah, that'd be awesome. But a win's a win, and I'll take the win. We'll take the win. But once that happened with Bell and he threw it away, you knew Arias was going to do something, and he did, obviously, and huge trip. I mean, I could go on and on about every one of those guys in the lineup. Fortes, good at bat against a tough sinker ball in Holmes, and again, I just I could sit here forever talking about these guys.
Both those guys, Bell and Berger, I think they've reached base in every, except for like one game. I think every game that they've won so far. Just think a little bit more about just what they've brought to kind of, and what they've helped to get this team kind of going again after that rough patch after the break.
I mean, they're hitting the ball as hard as anybody in the league, first and foremost. And the Bell at bats are, if he doesn't get a hit, at least he's taking a really good at bat, and he's walking as well. I mean, he's taking really good at bats. Even if he doesn't make outs, or get hits, he's making the guy work out there. Berger's he consistently takes really good at bats. He's driving the ball all over the ballpark, right center, down the line of left, with authority. I mean, his outs are 113, his line drives are 113. I mean, he's crushing the ball. His defense is never talked about. I guess that's a good thing. We know when you don't talk about your defense, but I just what they brought is like some leadership, some new energy, the work ethic. All that. I mean, they check I'm not a big check the box guy, but when you're thinking about like the guy that you're trying to acquire to get yourself to the playoffs, and then also bring into a culture where you're trying to build a winning, sustainable culture from not just this year, but for the next couple of years. These guys are those guys. Those are the guys that you want to put inside that clubhouse, and I'm grateful that our front office acquired those two.
Yeah, we have our usual requests already from LMF and Romeo, and I'm sure we'll hear from them later in the show. But we're gonna use the request function for people to enter the contest. It's gonna be one trivia question right after we're done with our little staff roundtable. We're gonna do one trivia question, and then people will request to buzz in, and we're going to give priority to our super subscribers. If you guys think you know the answer and you're free to go to Wednesday's game. Then we'll pick you guys first to try to guess the correct answer and win the tickets. But we're going to go down the line to whoever gets it first. That'll come up again in the middle of the show, right after we get through with this panel portion. Yeah, we're going to be giving away 2 tickets to Wednesday. Justin Verlander scheduled to start. Remember, he hasn't even faced the Marlins this year. He's supposed to, and then he got hurt early in the year. So Verlander against Luzardo, that's going to be the series finale between the Astros and the Marlins. And if you've been following this Marlins season, you know the series finales are the craziest, case in point being today. So you'll want to be there. But tickets courtesy of our pal Sean from the UK. I think he's flying in for these games himself, but he had a couple free to give away. So thank you to Sean for providing those. And we will pick a winner of that based on that trivia question coming up not too long in the middle of this show. So yeah, I'll give you guys another heads up when I'm about to ask the question. But in the meantime, we'll just do our normal talk leading up to that.
Won't give away any hints on what it might be, but if you have a sneaky suspicion, you got 25 minutes or so to figure it out, but we won't waste any more time. We'll get right into it. 2 series that were eerily similar, dropped the first game in embarrassing fashion. Second game squeaked by a little bit behind some great pitching. Then the third game, a massive late game comeback fueled by heroics from Miami's trade deadline acquisitions. So we'll start with Cincinnati. It already feels so distant ago, but that first game was pretty abysmal. Yuri's first start back, thought he did enough to win the game, but offense was just pretty stagnant in that one. That second game, Jorge Soler with the go-ahead homer. Braxton Garrett really found his stuff, faced a team that hits left-handed pitchers really, really well. Still found a way to get the win there. And then, of course, that comeback victory Wednesday afternoon, fueled by Josh Bell's 3-run game-tying homer, and then DLC getting the go-ahead homer in the 9th inning. So we've got Kevin here, we've got Alex Crutching, and we've got Eli. Of course, you guys have already heard from him. We'll go round table here, just general takeaways from that series. It's a series where 2 teams are really, really struggling going into it, but one came out on top, and that was the Marlins.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to go.
It was a case where, as you mentioned, going into that, the Marlins were such a frustrating team to watch, always finding different ways to lose. And the thing is, they finally met their match. They met a team that was in a very similar situation in the Reds, despite how much momentum and energy they had in the middle of the season. The Reds just as well, and probably more so in their case. Their bullpen has been an issue for a little while, and their lineup hasn't been quite as explosive. That kind of played out. Ellie De La Cruz has been one of the most talked about players in baseball during this middle portion of the season, and he barely did anything in this series. That's one critical piece that is going through some rookie growing pains. So the Marlins were able to produce offense late in those games against pitchers that just haven't been on top of their game, and then the Reds themselves didn't fight back the way that you would think. So certainly going to the final game, Josh Bell is what stood out, being the only Marlin ever to hit homers from both sides of the plate in a single game. So that was his defining game as a Marlins, putting the team on his back. But then I think it was he got a lot of help in those other games of the series. Tanner Scott, I remember, had at least one really dominant outing, and then David Robertson had a pair back to back. So that's no small thing that Robertson showing that he is kind of the player they thought he was when they acquired him. But then going all the way backwards to Yuri in the return of him, it was a tale of 2 times through the order. The first time through the order, he looked pretty much like the guy that we saw his previous stint with the Marlins. And then during the second time through, got hit hard, and he was nibbling around the corners of the plate, getting into some bad counts. And it was really his fastball that led to a lot of the damage. So you could really link that start, his most recent one, a guy that has a deep and impressive 4-pitch mix, relying really heavily on just his fastball and his slider. When his fastball is not well located, hitters can catch up to 97, 98, and 99. And the Reds did that, including Joey Votto, who was old enough to be his dad, hitting a home run off of him in that one. I think that still hammers home the main concern about this team moving forward is this rotation, and how recently Sandy has been the one guy that looks to be at the top of his game, and basically everybody else around him in this rotation is a big question mark right now. So that even includes Yuri. I don't think anybody, we weren't expecting him to pick up exactly where he left off, because even during that early portion of the season, as much as people don't want to admit it, he was overperforming a little bit if you just look at the peripherals. So he was due to come back down to earth a little bit. That being said, it is a little jarring to see him get hit hard. You would think that when things go wrong with him, it'd be him putting on free base runners, making little mistakes, not holding, struggling to field his position and stop the running game. So to see him struggle in this particular way was a little bit concerning. Ultimately, it's not about style points. It's just about winning the game. And so they were able to get a couple of signature 1-run wins on the end of that, which made all the difference and allowed them to, I think at this moment, they're now ahead of the Reds in the wildcard race.
They are tied for the tiebreaker as well, as Lau Marlins fan pointed out to me. I completely forgotten that that's a factor in this season. So the Marlins own the tiebreaker over the Cubs. I believe they're 4-2 against the Cubs this year. 4-2, yeah, that sounds about right. I believe they are also ahead of Arizona. Those would be the only teams they're really competing against. I think the Giants and Phillies will probably stay at the top, but nonetheless, series against another wild card competitor that went well, surprisingly. So we'll move on to this weekend. And Eli had mentioned it, pitching struggles. I was very disheartened and a little scared about Jesus Luzardo's outing Friday night, but the next night, Saturday, of course, Sandy Alcantara, he might be back. Another complete game, absolutely dominated the Yankees. Maybe the most impressive complete game in quite some time, just given what happened behind the plate that night with Angel Hernandez. I thought for sure Skip was going to get ejected this series, given what had happened earlier in the week. That's something we forgot to even mention. Skip ejected twice against the Reds. That might not happen again. That's pretty rare to get ejected twice in one series. But then, of course, today's heroic comeback win. Kevin, you were there as a fan today. Tell us about the experience. Just you almost left, it seems, but you got to stay and watch some history.
Yeah, I was walking out, and I was like, 7-3. I mean, this team has been crap in almost 9 innings, might as well. But man, they kept me behind home plate right there on the concourse watching, and it was cool. But I do want to, Yuri, after like a quick first inning of work, he just seemed like he was never finding the strike zone too well for the most part. I believe he only ended up getting 2 walks or so, but I mean, when you look at it, didn't get many whiffs on the fastball, which is normal. Again, I just want to see him use the changeup more. I don't know why he isn't using this changeup more. He mentioned it the first time that it was due to the tack baseball, but when he went back to Double-A, they're not using tack baseballs anymore. I mean, by now you would think that he would have gotten used to that with the changeup, but guess not. I mean, he's been going fastball slider for the most part. Obviously, this is a really good Yankees lineup. They're pitching very carefully to Judge. I believe he walked maybe 3 times, I want to say, throughout this game today. I want to say 3. No, twice. So, and he didn't strike out. So, just, something there to mention. Obviously, for the most part, you have Judge at the top, Gleyber Torres standing there. So, it was a tough lineup for Yuri. I guess for the most part, he got hit pretty hard very early on. And it was kind of looking like, what we saw on Friday night until, obviously, Miami was able to come back 39th, which, I'll say it was lucky, but this team has been in luck many times this year. They did it against Chicago. Obviously, we saw St. Louis game when Hicks threw the ball up. I think Kyle mentioned that, or someone did on Twitter. And obviously now, they were able to come back win. I guess worth giving Josh Bell another shout out. That guy's been great for Miami ever since coming here. Jake Berger, who walked it off too. Kim Ng's looking pretty smart for those 2 trades there. Obviously, not only for this season, but going next season for Bell, and then for Berger, you have until 2027. I want to say becomes a free agent in 28. So can't be disappointed with the series. Miami getting 2 huge wins, and obviously I wasn't there. I couldn't watch the Sandy game. I was busy doing some other stuff, but he was phenomenal for the most part from what I saw from box scores and everything else. So, huge win for Miami. Very much needed. I will say this was a much needed series to kind of separate yourself a little bit in the wild card, and they'll hold that 3rd spot there. But Houston's a really good team, and that's what they've got coming next for them. It's not going to be easier from here. You still have Houston, LA, San Diego, and I believe Washington. So that should be kind of a cookie, series. Easy one.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in the week ahead. That's something I do want to talk about. This Astros series and this road trip is going to be kind of crazy. But you mentioned Josh Bell. these trade acquisitions have worked so well. Alex Crutchen, if he's there, he talked to Josh Bell for a piece that got put out this morning, I believe, on Josh Bell and just his adjustment, just taking a little deeper dive within that. So, Alex, do you want to preview that article just a little bit?
Yeah, and he kind of spoke on some of the things that the veterans have been preaching about all season, which is the culture is different, and now Josh Bell comes in and he kind of mimics the same thing that they've all been saying. He said that Jacob Stallings, who's a former Florida State League teammate with him, I believe from their time in the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, actually called him and gave him the whole rundown on the culture and the expectations and how they operate here in Miami. He already called out certain guys in the locker room, Josh Bell did, about, who's the leader here. He mentioned Joey Wendell, John Birdie, Jazz Chisholm. One of the things that stood out to me was, the confidence that he got here in Miami that maybe he didn't have in Cleveland. He didn't say that he has more confidence here than he did in Cleveland, but what he did say was that the trust here made him feel a lot better. Game one here in Miami, he's hitting third, while in Cleveland he was hitting fifth or sixth. And he told me, he said, it lit a fire underneath me to be given that trust right away from Skip and from the front office. And you can see it on the field. Remember, a lot of Marlins fans, they weren't against the Josh Bell trade, but it was more of, we got Jake Berger and then also Josh Bell. But so far, Josh Bell has been, actually, in terms of win probability added, he came into this afternoon's game as the best Marlins hitter since the trade deadline. So, we linked the article here in the spaces. I think you should all give it a read. Him and Jake Berger have been great. It was a tremendous trade deadline for Kim Ng. Jake Berger came through today with that game-winning hit. I think that they're both the best trade deadline acquisitions that the Marlins have had since Starling Marte, and they wound up making the playoffs that year off their shoulders.
Hey, it's awesome stuff. We gave it a read. Josh Bell's a pretty good interview. He's definitely happy to be here. He told me that his sister is a University of Miami alumnus. So any U fans out there, U graduates like Mr. Eli here, there you go. There's a connection there. I also talked to all the trade deadline acquisitions that are on the Major League roster right now. That got posted a few days ago. If you have yet to read that, go ahead. I think a lot of you guys already have. But it's definitely an interesting deadline, and one that the Marlins early returns are saying that they won it. I mean, Jake Berger and Josh Bell are both hitting well above 300 at this point in time since they came to Miami. David Robertson, after a couple of those blown saves, he's really dialed it in. Jorge Lopez, he's been struggling this year a little bit, but he's definitely got the right stuff. He could definitely get it together here down the stretch, and I would be intrigued to see if Brian Weathers comes back up at all. So overall, very good deadline. Dividends are paying off very, very quickly. So let's talk a little bit just about this offense. It's very up and down. There's some games where you just can't hit the ball, but then you have the day where they throw in 8 runs. Where are you guys, just open-ended here, think this team could go just in terms of getting a more consistent offensive approach at the plate? Or any numbers you guys have noticed?
Very quickly, you guys talking about Josh Bell. He's going to be the next guest for Unfiltered, so stay tuned.
There you go.
Okay, well, I'm gonna bring up. You mentioned Josh Bell. The way he's playing, how confident are we that he will opt in to next season? If he
I was thinking about that. $16 million player option. He would have to go scorched earth, I feel like, to be able to go get more money next offseason. But at the same time, he's playing that way right now. So I think it's a higher probability that he opts out of his player option than if Jorge Soler opts in. And that might not even be that much of a hot take. I think it's out there for the taking.
I don't know exactly. Did you mix that up? I don't know how the way that you said it. They're both in the same situation. They both could opt out. I think people are overreacting to 2 weeks of Josh Bell. If he keeps this up for another month and a half, then he'll opt out. But I don't think that's a realistic expectation. As exciting as this is, as compelling as this is, I think people just need to enjoy this. I think it's something to revisit. If he keeps up this level of production for another couple weeks, then you revisit it. But it is a different situation. This is a guy for the last calendar year. He just has not been a good baseball player. That's a big sample, like 170 something games with the Guardians and with the Padres. Not a good baseball player. So $16.5 million, that's significantly more than Soler is in line for. Guys that are only about a year age difference anyway. I think even less than that. So yeah, for the moment, I think you enjoy the ride. He's helping them win games. And I think for the moment, you have to say it's more likely than not that he's going to stick around. But if he makes it a hard decision, then that will probably mean that the Marlins themselves are much more likely to actually make the playoffs this year. If they make the playoffs because with Josh Bell as their most productive hitter down the stretch, then I think that's a very fair trade-off. And then who knows? Maybe they are in the market to bring him back. They don't have a great first base success plan. People may disagree depending on how they value Troy Johnston, but even if he does opt out, you wonder how much the Marlins would be in the market to bring him back regardless.
If it was up to Carver, he'd be up here right now. So we love you, Alex, but yeah.
Carver, before we get to week ahead, can we get a little minor league weekend review?
Oh man, well, I agree with everything you guys just said about this team acquisitions being perfect. I mean, I think Kime did a wonderful job at this deadline. This is the trade deadline she needed to have, and you see it come to fruition today. This was fabulous. I mean, I had the game on in the background, and I was not expecting what happened today to actually happen. And Josh Bell and Jake Berger right there at the front of it. So very, very cool. They make up for what again was not, I think, what's getting lost in this was another start by Yuri Perez, which was not very good. And it's very unrealistic to expect from this kid to go out every night and every day and be lights out. He has not been since he's been back up here. That is a little bit at the fault of the Marlins for how they handled him, but it's also, up to him to come back up and show that he can perform. And, lately he's had a couple good innings early in games, and then it goes awry, very, very quickly. So it sucks to see that from Perez, but the Marlins made up for it today, which was very cool. Minor league weekend review, man. I guess, Troy Johnston keeps going. I mean, this guy, as Eli printed on the site, is one of the first Marlins in a bit to record 100 RBIs, and I think he is the first Marlin ever to record 100 RBIs in under 100 games, which I think is very, very, very cool. That guy, he did not have a great start at AAA last year when they called him up. I think he hit under 200. Then there was the Rule 5. He passed through. I know there was teams interested. Kevin can tell you that as well. I know there were multiple teams that were interested. He passed through. I really don't think that if the Marlins don't call him up, I really don't think there's a chance that guy passes through another Rule 5. So they're either going to have to get him here when rosters expand. That seems to be the only clear-cut way to do it. We were talking about that last night. I think your guys are right that the only clear-cut way to do it is when rosters expand. You also have Xavier Edwards, who's been very good. He's got a little control around him, though, so there's possibility there to, not that you want to hold him back either, but he has positional flexibility. Maybe there's an injury that happens down the stretch. Who knows? But that guy will have a way to get here as well. So those are the two guys at AAA that you really look at that you want to get here. I think Johnston is harder to get here than Edwards, which is going to be interesting when these rosters expand on September 1st. I guess the only other thing we can say at a much lower level is that Noble Meyer had his second career start yesterday. I was there to watch it in blazing heat on the Cardinals side of Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium. Did very well. I think it was a good step forward for him after the start that me and Kev saw, where he had his first career start. He said it himself. He felt much, much better. Fastball command was much better. I know Pipeline printed about him that fastball command was like a main thing he needed to improve. And I think in this start he really showed that. Slider's still inconsistent. I know Isaac had questions about the slider. He said himself slider was still pretty inconsistent, something he wants to work on. But, man, this is a young kid making his way, and he's already doing so much, so well. Man, he's just going to get built up to his full workload is what really needs to happen. He's only going, 1.2 innings, and then yesterday 2.1. So still very early for him, but I like what I'm seeing so far from him. There's a lot of other FCL guys. I'm going to write about this shortly. I'm going to have it out probably tomorrow morning, Eli, on these guys in the FCL and what I saw from them these last two times that I was there and Kev was there for the first time. So fun at the lower levels as well. Man, what else can I say? Yeah, I mean, man, it's an interesting time to cover this minor league system after what they cleared out. But there's still some guys to cover here, still some talent here that we can point to and say, okay, these guys are decent. Jacob Berry is another guy that people don't want to hear about, but the guy's been good lately. I've liked him lately. Kev can tell you that too. We've liked him lately, right, Kev? Go ahead. I'll let you talk on Berry. Go ahead.
I'm impressed. That's all I can say. They still play him at third base at times, and that kind of pisses me off a little bit, but it's fine. Aside from that, I mean, he's been better. It's not the Jacob Berry that Miami got the drafted, but it's better than whatever he was doing at low A and high A. I'll tell you that much. I guess he needed, more different competition, I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, if he keeps going at this pace, it's nice, I guess. It's not, obviously, you're not getting what you expected in the draft, but definitely a player that is not bad. I think that's the best way to put it. I would have to look at the numbers. Obviously, they played the game today, or they're playing it right now, so those numbers will change. But ever since joining the Wahoos, he's been a lot better than usual. And I think if you even look at the last month, I want to say, since around June, he's been just a bit over league average, which is, I guess, encouraging if you want to put it like that. But aside from that, yeah, I mean, he's been good. Shout out Jose Devers. He's still been pretty good for the Wahoos, if I'm correct. I haven't looked at his numbers in a bit, but just obviously the Wahoos social media team puts a lot of their highlights out there. So a lot of Jose Devers, Victor Mesa Jr. I know he had a homer the other day or something like that. It's been, that upper levels is nice. It's a good level. And obviously we could talk about Pipeline, them updating that list a lot better than what they've done in past years. So yeah, a lot from the minor leagues, a lot to get into, but obviously we're talking about the Miami Marlins, we're playoff contention, so we could do that minor league talk for another day.
Will Banfield Oppo Taco today as well. That's the last thing I'll say. But yeah, we can hold minor leagues for there. But yeah, it's been a fun week. Just to call it.
We need to do a podcast.
We will. Yeah, we will. So, but yeah, some fun stuff going on down there, especially with what they cleared out. It was a fun couple weeks. But I know you guys got to get the speakers on this great Marlins win today. So we'll go to that. Go ahead.
Let's go week in review. We want to talk about a playoff team. I think this week's going to be really, really telling. Both the teams that the Marlins have to face this week, 2017 World Series participants. Of course, rosters aren't nearly the same, but these are both great teams as of late. The Astros are really, really getting hot right now. They're impressive. And the Marlins will see their three best pitchers this week, all in order. Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, and Justin Verlander. One of Verlander's first starts back with the Astros and the Marlins. Back into the rotation will be out there, minus Luzardo, but Luzardo hasn't been that good as of late. So Monday will be Framber Valdez versus Braxton Garrett. Braxton, I'm encouraged by him and what he did against Cincinnati, but he will face a tough Astros lineup. Tuesday, I think that's the game maybe Miami could win. Johnny Cueto versus Christian Javier. Javier hasn't been great as of late. I know it's crazy to say that the Marlins could win the Johnny Cueto game, but Javier hasn't been great. Cueto, as long as you give him 6 innings, maybe 3 earned runs, even 4, I think maybe you've got a shot. And then Wednesday, Verlander versus Luzardo. I mean, I feel like the Marlins, for once, are outmatched with starting pitching. And this Astro series is going to test them. I just want to have them get out of there without getting swept. But if the Marlins do somehow take 2 out of 3, I would be mightily impressed. And then this weekend starts a 6-game road trip out to Southern California. Mr. Isaac Azut will be there for, I believe, 5 of the 6 games. I think he's missing one of the ones in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken.
The last one in LA.
Last one in LA, okay. But he will be there for 2 LA games, 3 San Diego games. Get to see old friend Garrett Cooper out there. We'll get to see old friend Miguel Rojas as well. I mean, I use the word friend lightly there, but either way, really, really tough stretch to play coming up for the Marlins. If you really want to look ahead, they do have San Diego, and Kev talked about, the quote-unquote break against the Nationals, if you want to call it that. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself there saying that. But it's a tough stretch coming up. I'm particularly really, really interested in this Astros series. We'll go round table here with our collection of speakers. So what do you guys see coming ahead this week?
Very quickly, Eli, you would think they make a roster move tomorrow to send down Brosvon. I believe he went over 40 pitches. You would bring in a fresh arm that's already on the 40-man, right?
Yeah, so it's a question of whether that's today or tomorrow because he won't be available for the Astros series. So even if it's not a like production based demotion, he's just simply the way that they used him. Yeah, they need a fresh arm. Tommy Nance, he today I believe was the completion of his rehab assignment. I think this was like the exclamation point that's says like, he's a viable pitcher again. So he went back to back days in Pensacola, scoreless outings, 7 appearances overall. He's coming back soon. He's not going to pitch tomorrow. He won't be available tomorrow. So the question is, do they bring him back even if he's not going to be available to pitch, or do they have like one of those in between moves? You know, sometimes they do it where they call up a guy just for a single day to fill an opening and then option him or DFA him. So they might bring up Jeff Hartlieb. They might bring up anybody else that's either on the 40 man or even if they're not on the 40 man because they have an open spot right now. So yeah, I do expect Brazaban to get sent down either tomorrow or on Tuesday for somebody new to add length to their bullpen. And yeah, we'll see what Nance is capable of when he comes back. He had some bright moments last year. Obviously, he's been out all of this year with a shoulder issue.
Just for reference, the only relievers right now, at least in Jacksonville, that are on the 40 man are Josh Simpson and G.F. Hartlieb, as you said. So we could probably expect Hartlieb to be up there.
Wait, who was the second one?
I'm not saying the last name, man. I tried. You know who I'm talking about. He was the one. He gave up LeBron to Adolis Garcia. That's all you need to know. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last thoughts about this series this week? Really, really big week coming up for the Marlins. This is probably the toughest week yet.
Yeah, I'll just say that Framber Valdez is having an odd year. Last year, he was so ridiculously consistent for the Astros, and this year's been the opposite of that, where he's been good overall, but there's been a lot of blow-up outings, a lot of big innings, and you look at his game logs, and he still gives length, but every so pretty frequently, he's given up crooked numbers along the way. So I'll be interested to see how that translates, even though on paper, he's such a decorated player. Like he's having a weird year, so I wouldn't put it past the Marlins to win that game that Framber starts as well. Yeah, other than that, this Astros team is pretty good. Altuve has been pretty amazing over the last month plus. They just lost Jose Abreu to an injury, but he hadn't been a huge piece of their lineup anyway. So besides for Abreu, they're at mostly full strength. Their outfield is amazing. Yeah, it's a really deep lineup. It's a really good team overall. They're still fighting for that division title in the AL West. People kind of wrote them off behind the Rangers, but it's only a few games in between them. So every game is pretty precious for them. And yeah, they'll be that game and then combined with the Dodgers series as well. There haven't been that many weeks this year where they have 2 teams of that caliber back to back like this. So it'll be yet another big test. You know, we talked about this stretch of their schedule coming into it. And this individual week, we're right in the heart of this very tough stretch of this season where, I don't know. I don't know how the Marlins are going to creatively come back to win as often as they do, but they've been doing it this far into the year. So even if they're at a talent deficit here, I've given up on like trying to anticipate exactly how these series are going to go.
How about John Singleton's resurgence, huh? That's a fun player. I'm excited to see him. Miami last year took 2 out of 3 against the same Houston team. Obviously, different players now on each team, but Miami, you could argue that last season when they faced Houston, this team was worse. The Marlins were worse than they are right now.
I don't think you have to argue that. The Marlins team last year is far worse than it is now, but it's just all about timing. I don't think the pitchers they faced were that good either. If I remember correctly. It's just all about Garcia.
I know they faced Verlander and Garcia. I think it was Garcia. And I know they took 2 out of 3, and I know it was the first 2 that they took, and the third, which was the Verlander start, they lost. And I believe it was a barely close game for the most part.
They were the only NL team last year, I believe, to win a series against the Astros. But either way, it's an entirely different time of year. The last 2 things I will say. Actually, I forget what the second one was, so we'll just go with this. Kyle Tucker has been like the best hitting outfielder in all of baseball over the last month, in my opinion. So maybe I'm showing my hand for my series MVP pick, but he's been really, really good. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off this week. But without further ado,
The other thing I would say really quick, Grant, just on what we were talking, before we get too far, I know you got to get to super subscribers here, but the only other thing I would say.
And we got trivia.
Yeah, I know. But the only other thing I would say before we get too far off topic is what Kevin was saying about bullpen guys. And a guy that is on the 40-man that I would not be opposed to see come up and contribute to this bullpen down the stretch and in these meaningful games is Edward Cabrera. I would like to see him contribute to at least the bullpen. He started last night. It was fantastic. We know what he's done as a starter lately. Why not get him some innings in the bullpen? Like, why is that so far-fetched? I think that should definitely be a thing. I don't know if you guys have thought on that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one because Cabrera, obviously he really struggled, and the cherry on top was that 6-walk performance where he just could not throw the ball over the plate, right? And so he was sent down after that. It was sort of speculated that might happen. But from what I understand, it was just as much an attitude situation as there was a performance issue with Cabrera. I dug up some stuff about that, and I confirmed that. Yeah,
Ray came on here and said that last week, I believe.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah. So it's known at this point.
Right. Yeah. So if it were just a performance thing, then yeah, I think they'd bring it back up and try him in the bullpen. But I don't know if they're really in love with this player. I don't know. That's just my thought.
And then they tried to trade for Brendan Rodgers last season, so they've obviously looked into shopping. They are getting calls on him this year.
Yeah, it's just crazy because, just a few years ago, he and Sixto Sanchez were, at the top of the prospect board, and it was sounds like Cabrera could be much better than what Sixto was showing, how incredible he could be in 2020, and, neither of them have really shown anything as of yet.
If it's not him, and that's, it's tough to see similar situations for both of those players, but if it's not Edward, if you go to a player that's off of the 40-man roster, I would probably say Daniel Castano should be the guy that you go to for length. That guy's been really good in AAA.
He has, yeah.
So yeah, I would probably say him for length.
Another lefty. They have I think it's 9 left-handed pitchers in
they do
staff right now. So I don't know if there's much fit for Castano right now. But if they need a spot starter, I totally agree that I would give him a shot.
Yeah,
there's no one.
Soriano's just still worked. That guy. Every time they need a long reliever, it's that guy, and he's done well with it. But man, if you need innings, I think that's a good way to go. Even though yes, you're right, it's another lefty, and they have so many. But I think that would be advantageous if it's not Edward. But I would like to see Edward in the bullpen, man. I think he's at least earned that.
Feels like no one else though.
I feel like long term Edward would be good in the bullpen, and I also think. If Trevor Rogers pitches again this year, which I don't, he'll be in a bullpen role. He's for sure not starting again this year. I can tell you that right now. Because whose spot are you going to have to take? When would he even come back? I mean, the guy's not even throwing yet, and we're almost midway through August. So even if he were to come back, I think he would be in a bullpen role at that point.
Well, like we saw in the last injury update, he still has to throw. So, maybe tomorrow we'll get another update. Likely still not throwing. So,
Yeah. The very last thing before you guys get to speakers on the bullpen that I will say is this guy is not with the Shrimp right now, but he is scheduled to be back, I think, pretty shortly. From what I'm hearing, is Anthony Maldonado. I would look out for that arm because I know that he is rehabbing with Jupiter. He's doing pretty well. His velo is right where it should be. That guy I know is coming back from hip injury. It was kind of a confusing injury for him and the people around him. But I do know that he's on his way back. And when he does get back, if he's at full strength, that'll be it was Sean Reynolds before he got traded. Now it's Maldonado as the guy that you really want to see come up as long as he's fully healthy. So I think that guy will make a difference as long as he's healthy.
Pipeline added him to the top 30.
They could add anyone to that top 30.
Yeah, they had some random AA reliever right before the update. I think it was Matt Pusher or something. They added him to the top 30, barely in the middle, and I was like, oh my God.
Whatever. Yeah, nothing. That has nothing to do with Pipeline, but I do think that arm can make a difference. And
no, it's just it's just fair to mention he got added there. I think this is his first addition to Pipeline too, which I don't suggest you guys to look too much into Pipeline, but
All right, without further ado, we'll wrap up our talk and we'll listen to you guys. But first, something we're doing different today. We got some tickets to give away. If you heard at the top of the show, we do have some tickets to Wednesday night's game, Justin Verlander versus Jesus Luzardo at the ballpark. So, Eli, I'm going to let you take it from here so I don't mess anything up, and we'll get the people going and try and give away some tickets here.
All right. Ticket giveaway, courtesy of our pal Sean in the UK. 2 tickets that are in row 1 of section 135 for Wednesday's game against the Astros. Giving them away just based on this trivia question. So you're going to answer the question, or you're just going to do rapid fire call-ins for people to guess in if they want to win. You just request and you call in. For those of you that already requested, I see LMF and Sharif and Robinson. If you guys want to actually win the tickets, then you got to start over again. So for people that request in now, once I read the question, you got to wait until I read the question. You got to wait until I read the question and then request, and I'll call on first people. Give priority to the super subscribers. So I'll read the question. I'll read it a second time, and then I'll start calling on people to try to answer this question. It's a Marlins and Astros trivia question about Yuli Gurriel, because he's on the Marlins now. He had a big hit today to start that rally. He was on the Astros last year, won a World Series title with them. All right, so here is the question for the 2 tickets to Wednesday. You're going to tell me, in Yuli Gurriel's final game as a Houston Astro, where did he bat in their lineup? So that was last season. For these tickets, you just request if you want a chance to answer it. Yuli Gurriel, 2023 Marlin, but in 2022 on the Astros. The final game he played in 2022 with the Astros, where did he bat in their lineup? So, since I read it, I see we've had 2 new requests from Zoe and also from Thomas. So I'm calling those guys first. If we don't have any new super subscribers buzzing for a chance to win, one more time. Where did Yuli bat in the Astros lineup for the final game that he played with them last year? So I saw Zoe first. I'm going to bring him in. We're going to double check that he's actually one to win the tickets. Mr. Zoe, are you buzzing in for the trivia question to win 2 tickets to Wednesday's game?
He's not in for me.
I'm seeing him in here.
He's connecting right now.
He shows up as a speaker for me. Maybe we're going to try it one more time.
I mean, worst case, since he was the first one, you could let him DM you the answer, I guess. I don't know.
10th. He batted 10th.
Oh, wait. Let me try one more time. Now can you speak, so?
He doesn't show up for me either.
Damn. I don't know. Let's see if Thomas has better luck with it. Did it work for Thomas?
Yeah.
I think so. Are you buzzing in to try to win the tickets and answer the trivia question?
Yes.
All right. So what is your guess to that question?
I'm going to guess 8th.
No. So close.
Good guess, though. Very good guess.
It is not 8th. Thank you for trying, though. Thank you for competing. We could try Zoe one more time. He shows up as a request again. Now can you speak, Zoe? Or still no? Still just connecting.
He's there. Can you guys hear me?
There he is. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, I've been listening to you guys for quite a while, so I appreciate obviously some good content here from a fellow Miami and baseball fan as well. This Marlins team has kind of got me back into cheering for the Marlins after probably about maybe 4 or 5 years, like unbearable, can't root for them. I'm going to guess that Yuli hit, let's say 6.
Woo!
That's a pretty good Astros lineup they had there. So yes, new bottom 3 was.
Congratulations. Yes. Game 5, 2022 World Series. He hit 6th. He hurt his knee, so he didn't even play in the final game of that
Oh, I
series.
didn't even know that actually.
No, congratulations. I will DM you the details to get you those tickets. Thanks for listening to us. And yeah, good guess there.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Anytime. I mean, I don't know how you guys obviously have a pretty
cool little clique going on there, stating some cool baseball facts. I don't know how to kind of get more involved with you guys and maybe contribute a little more. I played baseball at Christopher Columbus High School and was, pretty good. And I just think what you guys are doing is just fucking awesome, for lack of better words. So thanks for obviously supporting such a cool Marlins team, and I guess I'll be at the game on Wednesday.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, I'll tell you what, since you're here now, we're getting into fan questions. If you got any questions about this team or just pertaining to baseball, we'll let you lead us off here with the fan caller.
Oh, okay, good one. Let me think here. Put me on the spot, but I have a couple good. I've had a couple good ideas and good questions. Let me see if we can put an interesting one together. Let's see. Is there actually? I do a pretty interesting question here. Let's say Yuri gets caught up. We're down the stretch. We're using Yuri as a starter, and let's say we do punch a ticket into the second or third wild card slot. Is there a chance if he's really tight on innings? I know it's a very dangerous front three. Us putting Sandy, Luzardo, and then Yuri. Split the lefty with the two righties in a 3-game series. But if Yuri is tight on innings, have we heard any rumblings about maybe putting Yuri towards the back end of that bullpen? Live arm can come in at 7th, 8th, high leverage innings and take care of that. I know obviously difficult to switch him maybe from the starter mindset over to a bullpen kind of mindset. But if he is tight on innings, I think that's too good of an arm for us to not have involved in the playoff run. Maybe try to upset a team or two.
There haven't been any rumblings about that per se, but yes, I 100% agree that will be an option for them. And I think that is the route they'll take when he does reach his innings limit. How many innings does he have for the year? I think he's got maybe like 430 left before he reaches the preseason limit.
Yeah,
so, I definitely do see them. Even in late September, I could see them transitioning him to the bullpen just to sort of save some innings, and that'd be a hell of a piece to add to the back end of your bullpen, especially with all the lefties they have back there. They don't really have a power right-handed guy, and type of Lopez. Maybe Robertson is a different type of pitcher, but
exactly. Maybe pair like for example, I could see on paper, obviously never turns out that way, but like Yuri in the 7th, then you bring in Tanner Scott to the 8th, get that lefty-righty combo, and then finish him off with someone like that doesn't have maybe the high velo stuff, but kind of has obviously more of pitch craft in the 9th with Robertson. I think that we put that behind maybe six or so from Luzardo or 6 or so from Sandy. Obviously, you want more from Sandy, but you never know what happens. Those innings could get stressful in the postseason.
Yeah, before you joined, we were speaking about Edward Cabrera, so I don't know if he's someone that they would want to try doing that with first.
It'd be a good idea with him too. Yeah,
right. So.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it would happen with Edward before Yuri. I think they want Yuri to continue to start baseball games, honestly, even if it's 2-3 innings at a time.
Okay.
I think it would be okay, to just run him out as a glorified opener, I guess, or put in your bullpen with Edward or somebody else.
Yeah.
So, I think overall it's going to be Yuri staying in the rotation and maybe somebody like Edward or maybe Castano, like we mentioned before, coming in, maybe Hoeing again. I don't know, whatever it is, as the cleanup guy. I think that's probably a more realistic route because I do think they want Yuri to continue to start baseball games.
Hey, they put D-Train in the bullpen in 03.
That's a good point. And just because we're here, I got another interesting one. What is the chances, especially seeing Bruce Sherman's reaction? He's right there, sitting right next to the field. That 9th inning, this afternoon, us absolutely madness, fighting back. There's no quit in this team. What are the chances that maybe Sherman doubles down on what he's been saying and saying, at the end of the year, if we do end up in the postseason and, maybe we upset a team but end up losing, what are the chances that he opens up the pocketbook a little bit and says, hey, Soler, you like Miami. I sat next to his wife a couple weeks ago at a game. The little boy was there. They were having such a good time. What are the chances that, maybe we bring back Soler, Bell opts in, and now we really have a deep lineup going into, 2024 that would be with a group of guys that loves to play together, second-year manager and Skip. You build on your success. Last thing we want to do is get into the postseason, and then, we kind of lose a couple of key positions. And I think that if Soler does walk, we still have Berger and Bell to kind of cover that power, middle of the lineup, driving some runs. But it would be amazing if we can figure out a way to keep him because he's carried this team in the first half
We can't forget about that. We wouldn't be in the position where we're at right now if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, the complication is ties into whatever the hell they're gonna do at shortstop and at catcher, because those are two big positions that are really expensive usually to address one way or the other. And those are the ones that, as much as they value Soler, those are the positions that are the biggest question marks for the organization going forward, where the internal options aren't like super sexy either. Those are I would imagine the biggest priorities in the offseason. I am optimistic that he'll continue the trend of spending more and more and more than he has to justify how things are going. As this weekend in particular, as optimistic as they were, the fact that they kind of hit their ambitious goal with all the people that came out to this ballpark, I think he is somebody. There are some owners that are just that there's some owners that are very cut and dry, that are very unemotional, that run their organization just like as a business. And he's a guy that I think is a little bit more, his emotions can kind of like actually pull him in one direction or another. I feel like he is a guy that, depending on the success or lack thereof that this team has the rest of the way, I think that could influence exactly where the money goes moving forward. But yeah, it ties into those other positions that are either going to be super expensive in free agency, or could even, in terms of just trading for guys, could be pretty pricey as well. So I think those shortstop and catcher, those are going to take precedent in terms of how much they're willing to commit on DH types like Soler, as good as Soler has been.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Eli. I mean, I think that, I wasn't thinking in that mindset just because I'm trying to come up with a quality question. But yeah, you're 100% right. Those up the middle positions, catcher's been miserable for us this year, especially offensively. And then, shortstop's not far behind.
Right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Zo. Or Z-O. It's Z-O, right? Not Zo.
Yeah, it's those are my initials. My
right.
name's Zach, guys. So next to meet everyone. I appreciate the time. I'll stop talking now because I'll be here all day.
Thanks a lot. I'll DM you the details about the tickets.
Yeah, no worries, Eli. Take your time. Thanks, man.
Yo, have fun.
Enjoy. Yeah. On Wednesday. That's an awesome game to be a part of.
Gonna see a future Hall of Famer take on Jesus Luzardo. Kevin Burrell and I will be there.
I'll meet you guys.
Isaac. Wow. What a pleasure.
I'll meet you guys. Shoot me a DM if you guys want, and we'll catch up at a half inning or so.
Sounds good, brother.
Damn, nice stuff. Well, man, before you go on to other speakers, because I know we got a couple in here, I want everybody here, before you guys pose your questions, I want you guys to ponder this. Maybe this is a question for next space, probably next week, but we're talking now. It's midway through August. We got September call-ups happening soon. So think about this. Who would you guys call up? Roster expands 28. Who would you guys call up? Maybe that's some thoughts to get in here into the space for anybody that wants to talk. Who would you guys call up from the minor leagues?
Here we go, huh?
Troy Johnson, I think, is your number one answer you're looking for.
Yeah, he wants the Troy Johnson.
He wants the Troy propaganda. I was gonna say Edwards. I'm a big fan of Troy's hit tool as well. I think he's probably the best hitting prospect in the system. But Edwards is just what he's doing by putting the ball in play every single freaking time. The guy does not strike out. He's got speed, and I actually liked what I saw from his very limited sample size up in the big leagues this year. They could definitely 100% use him in a myriad of ways in September when those rosters do expand, whether it's pitch running, whether it's throwing him in center field, if Jazz is hurt or something. I think there's no way they don't have Xavier Edwards on the roster by September 1st.
I think give them all the answers, man. Like let the audience make their own picks. Anyway,
I'll make mine.
If you have Maldonado. Yeah, I think that's mine too. But if you have anyone else that we didn't mention between Maldonado, Edwards, Troy Johnson, I would expect it to be one pitcher, one hitter. Just that's how it usually is. If you have someone else, make a case for him. We'll hear you out. Either way, we've got a lot of Marlins fan here. Chase got to see pretty good game, pretty good series. Man, talk to us.
It was an adventurous series at that. But before I ask my question, speak about the series, I did have a thought on Tommy Nance. Is he close to being back from rehab? I saw that he was in some starts or time down there.
Eli mentioned it that I believe today was his last rehab start, Eli, or something like that.
Yeah, it is my anticipation that he'll be back very, very soon. Usually the very last step in proving your healthiness is pitching back-to-back and pitching well, as he did yesterday and today with Pensacola. So I think his return to the 40-man is imminent. It's just a question of whether they call him up or whether they option him to Jacksonville. And considering what we saw from Brazoban today, the way that they used him, the fact that he won't be available for a while, I think, the clues seem to point in a pretty clear direction that Nance, I expect him to be up at some time during this Astro series.
Maybe I do have a feeling. Sorry, LMF, but just to kind of bounce off Eli, I was looking at, obviously the 40-man who's on it and who isn't. Would it surprise you, Eli, if maybe Josh Simpson's the one that replaces Brazoban, and obviously DFA Hartley to get Nance back on the 40-man? Because that's the obvious DFA candidate there. Unless I'm missing someone who's on a reliever like in double A's when it's on the 40-man. But the only one I can think of right now is Hartley.
DFA Sixto.
No, you're over. I think you're overthinking it. Hartley, because he's on the 40-man, he's the one. And also Simpson pitched today, whereas I think Hartley did not. I think it's pretty simple that if they need an in-between guy to call up, it will be Hartley. And then whenever they need to make a decision about him and DFA him, that's probably coming at some point. But yeah, just one day at a time in terms of him. And then, we'll see Nance and figure out how that goes from here. And hopefully we get an update on Chagua sometime soon. We haven't really heard anything since he went on the IL. So it's pretty, I do wonder whether or not he'll actually be back this season. That's a word. Anytime somebody gets injured from now moving forward, you need a question about whether or not they're actually going to come back at some point. So that's another question that we'll probably get a little more info on tomorrow.
Maybe we find out, yeah.
Oh, I had actually missed that. So I guess Craig was right, huh? He was injured. Expect that last spaces.
Yeah, Chagua, he's injured. Yeah.
I had meant to ask him about it because I thought it was a good theory. Like, the guy just hadn't pitched in like weeks at that point. It was pretty obvious that something was up. I actually completely missed that he went on the IL. So, yeah, Craig was right. Breaking news in these spaces. LMF, what else you got, man? I know you got a lot on your mind.
Yeah, I do. It was such a great time at the ballpark. 100,000 people for the first time, I want to say ever, over a weekend stint here. We barely get that over a month. So in one weekend, that's freaking awesome. To those listening who came out, thank you for hopefully helping me cheer on the Marlins. It's a little difficult. Just remember, when any away team is here saying, let's go their team, to say, go home, their team, and it shuts them up real quick. But really, great job by our team coming back. Sandy, great job Saturday. Luzardo was a little off on Friday. It happens. He's never pitched this much from what I remember. Last season, he was injured for like 8 to 12 weeks, somewhere in that frame. So he missed a quarter of the season at least. So hoping he could come back and back to his normal self, if not close to it, because we definitely need him down the stretch. My talk here, my question for you guys, it's a double-edged question. One is, when do the players have to be on this roster to be on the postseason roster? I think that was like September 1st, if I'm not wrong there, or August 31st, if you could answer that first.
Oh, I love clarifying this every year. I'm eating dinner, but I took a break in order to answer this very important question because there's always a little bit of confusion about this. As long as the player is in the organization before September 3rd, so by August 31st, they are playoff eligible. It's really that simple. As long as they're in the organization before the start of September, they could be used later on in the playoffs. During the course of September, that's a different question in terms of who gets called up during the course of that month with the extra spots. But for guys just to be playoff eligible, as long as they're at some level of this organization right now, they could be used.
Thank you. Yes, what confused me is last year with Aguilar being released on the 28th, and then he had to find an organization quick. So that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying. That brings me to kind of takes part of it out. But when are they going to DFA Garcia? Because the way I see it is he's $12.5 million they're going to pay anyway, and he's getting paid that holding a roster spot up for someone on the bench. What are your thoughts on Garcia right now?
He's not getting DFA. Until right now, he's not getting DFA. They're not going to eat the money. He's just there, obviously. I was a little surprised he didn't play the first two games. Just, I guess, more not surprised, just the fact that they haven't played him as much as I thought they would have. But obviously, when we have Sanchez and DLC playing the way they are, they should keep him on the bench. And I don't think they're DFAing him. I'll just keep it like that. Maybe in the offseason they look for a trade partner, worst case, but I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. They have a lot of money on him right now, so I think I guess he's a nice pinch hit bat, and if you never need him to give Sanchi or DLC an off day, may as well. So, or even Jazz. They've played him in center field a couple times already this year.
Well, that's an expensive option, though. I will say, Kevin's right. It won't happen this season, but I don't expect him to be on the opening day roster in 2024. He's a negative asset. You have to eat the money. Eventually, they can't do 2 more years of this if they expect to compete. I think 2024 is probably your do or die year. 2025, it could get a little bleak from there, but I don't think you can expect to compete with him holding one of those 26 roster spots beginning of next year.
I would assume the answer is a no, but I would like to ask someone like Craig if they tried to dump him off somewhere like they did with Segura. I would think the answer is no, but kind of like what they did with Segura, where they attached Watson to dump off Segura. I would think maybe they did, but I'm starting to think no, just given that he's injured and all that.
Well, I wouldn't say
it's a different contract too, different contract. So,
well, what they actually got something in return for Segura and Watson.
Well, Watson. So, that's why, because they got Watson in return.
Right. So I wouldn't necessarily call that dump. I feel like, although we did say like last year that in order to get Aviseo Garcia out of the organization, you'd probably have to attach like Fury. I remember that being said in his spaces.
Yeah, that's true. That's true at this moment. He is so far underwater that they don't have a prospect that like offsets it right now. That's how bad it is. It is. Yeah. So I will just simply agree with what Grant said, that the way things are trending with Avi, I would expect him to be out of the organization this offseason. I think that's going to be it. But in the meantime, I think he'll stick around. And the way that they're using him, to Kevin's point, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. And I think it's accurate that you just start him against most lefties. And then aside from that, he is a pinch hitter for the guys at the very bottom of your offensive depth chart. He's a pinch hitter for your catchers late in the game, or a pinch hitter for Wendell when they bring in a lefty at a certain time. And that's about it. And so he's going to have a limited role on this team. And I imagine the role will shrink even a little bit more once rosters expand. But I do think he's going to be on the roster the rest of this way. And then they're going to make a pretty tough call on him in the offseason with 2 more years still guaranteed, plus the buyout of that 2026 club option. Wow. Yeah. So it has gone pretty poorly. And all you can do in the meantime is prioritize all the other outfielders ahead of him and just make sure that you don't play him unless it's an extremely favorable matchup.
It also shows how this organization feels about Avi already, that they've kind of cut the leash loose, where he's on the team, but he's just sitting on the bench. And, as Eli said, they'll use him in limited capacities like they did today to get Stalling out of the lineup for. I guess the matchup was ideal there, but just another example of how they used Avi today, which was the first time in I think like 2 or 3 days that they've used him, because I don't think he played. Well, did he play the last game of Cincinnati? I don't think he did. Ever since then, I haven't seen him in the lineup.
He did.
Okay, so they didn't play the first.
He batted in that 9th inning, and I was kind of scratching my head like, why don't you bring up Sanchez here?
Yeah, and I'm happy that Sanchez is getting the playing time he deserves. He should be starting over Avi as much as possible. I do have some stats to throw out before I let you guys go to the next, so thanks again for this time. Regarding the Astros, we did, as you mentioned, beat them 2 out of 3. We beat Garcia in game 1. Which was 6-10. And then Valdez, he faced Brax on 6-11 last year. We won that 5-1. And DLC is the only person on our current roster that got a hit off Verlander last year in game 3. So hopefully better results this time with a better team. So thank you guys. Let's go Marlins. We'll see you at the ballpark this week. Let's get louder. Oh, super subscribe. Right now, those listening, go super subscribe for $3 on Fish on First. Cheers.
Look, I forgot to do the promo, so thank you, Chase, just with the nature of our giveaway. Once again, congratulations to CEO for winning our little giveaway. So, yeah, we got Romeo in here, super subscriber, $3 a month, all sorts of benefits. The reason why we promote it here, because you get first priority to speak in these spaces. So Romeo's in here. LMF was a super subscriber, of course. But floor is yours, Mr. Romeo.
How's it going? How's it going? How's it going?
Good.
It's going good. Kevin, you were down before everything started. I defended you last week, right? And you were down on the promenade level and you didn't come say what's up to me.
I didn't see you. I walked. It took like 2 laps.
I was at 18, man. I was at 18.
I didn't see you. It was
Just
also tough to see anyone. That crowd was big. So and the concourse was pretty full for the most part. So
yeah, I'm just kidding with you, man.
I'll see you tomorrow, though.
Probably not. They moved me. I'm all the way at the bottom by the field level. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be on the field tomorrow, so I'll see.
Maybe. We'll see.
Let's see.
Back to what I was going to say. How far, I doubt that he pitches this year, but how far is Max Meyer? Last I seen, he was doing a throwing program, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's the last we heard on him. He himself said he wanted to come back towards the end of the year. That's not happening. I don't think it will. It's not going to happen. So he's just progressing.
He's got to the point of throwing bullpens even, which was a very promising sign, but then he had a slight setback, I want to say a few weeks ago, and I believe he has returned to throwing bullpens, but no, I think it is close to 0% chance we see him pitch this year, but he'll be full go 2024, another rotation option for this team that it'll be much needed.
Yeah. That was, I have something to confirm though. My man, Danny's not here, but while I was walking around, doing a lap around the field as a substitute soup, I ran into Miss Berger, Miss Ashlyn, I think that's how you say her name. Oh, Jake Berger's wife. Let's put it like that.
Okay.
I told her, and I know everyone. She asked for requests for spots in Miami, and I told her that Flanagan's is a staple in Miami, and that she should go. And she said that when they get a chance on another off day, they will be going to Flanagan's. Just to confirm that for everybody. That's important news right there. Just in case.
Load off my mind.
Whew, that's some hard-hitting journalism right there. We should offer you a position in the right place.
Yeah, that's there you go. That was the most important part of the day right here. She told me that today. So yeah, we have important stuff here at the super subscribers. That's what we do.
What about Justin Lawrence report?
He didn't pitch today, but I did see he did blow a save the other day. I did see that. So that one made me sad. But
well, Rockies are in a complete free fall. I mean, they have been all year, but man,
he got a save at the end of July, and I believe against St. Louis, he got a save. Yeah. And then, the other day versus Milwaukee, he allowed a hit, no runs. But that's the extent of Justin Lawrence. My team actually coming together on fantasy. I picked up Josh Bell at the perfect time, so it's W's all around here in the Romeo house.
Any questions out of the Romeo house?
How has your day been, Grant? And then that would be my last question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy that the Marlins came back, so we'll just leave it at that. It made my day pretty good. And they definitely needed that win. That's all you got, man.
That's what I got.
Going, yeah. We got Sean in here, who's still Marlins After Dark. I need to come back on soon. It's been a minute. Maybe we'll negotiate that. But what's your question, my man?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Question. Need to have it come back to mind for me here. Sorry, my kid just gave me a drawing. You're answering the phone. Okay. The two questions, and the one I remember right now is, so 15 games left in the month. What record do you think you'd need to see them have for you to feel optimistic about being able to keep it going for the postseason?
Wait, state it one more time. I missed the entire first half. I apologize.
What record would you want to see the team run off in their final 15 games of this rough August to feel optimistic going into September about that?
I'm not a math major, but I would like to see probably. I'd like to win one game against the Astros. I'd like to try and come out of the West Coast trip at or above 500 for that stretch, like just during those games, like 3-3 or whatever. I want to sweep the Nationals. I feel like that's the standard at this point. They just own the Nationals at this point. Who is after the Nationals? They play the Rays again?
Tampa, yeah. Two here in Miami. Tampa.
Another one of those 2-game series against the Rays. It's always
and then you have 3 against the Nats in Washington again. In Washington.
That's back-to-back weekends.
Yes, correct.
That's probably over Labor Day weekend. If I'm doing the math right. Okay.
Looks like it.
Yeah, I mean, having 2 Nats series at the end of the month is definitely going to be a nice reward for playing the gauntlet they're in the middle of right now. But look, just don't get swept. Get a couple of series wins, and I feel confident that the rest will sort itself out. Seems like the Padres might have just put a fork in their season today, according to Manny Machado. The Diamondbacks are in a complete free fall right now. I mean, God, they've been the worst team in baseball over the last month. That's crazy to think about. And then the Reds. Look, I've been critical of the Reds and their lack of pitching and their lack of deadline moves. I think they're going to probably fizzle out of it as well. So really, it's just hold off the Cubs and or Brewers. Whoever second place in the NL Central is, I think you've got a playoff spot. So just keep your head above water. Don't really worry about what everyone else is doing. Be focused on what the schedule is in front of you, and I think this team can make the postseason.
I guess it's also worth mentioning that September and October, or September/October, don't look too easy either. You have the Brewers, you have the Phillies, you have Atlanta, you have the Dodgers again. So it's not the easiest of schedules. Thankfully, you have the Mets there for 2 more series, and then you have Pittsburgh right at the end. So
getting Pittsburgh is that final week is nice.
Well, Pittsburgh and you are. So.
I will just echo something I've said before, that I think you guys are wasting your time trying to project opponent strength of schedule with 6 weeks in advance. You simply you have no idea what kind of opponent you're facing until maybe 10 days at most in advance notice. These things swing very suddenly due to injuries and due to slumps. When we were looking at the Reds a few weeks in advance of that series, we're like, whoa, the Reds are trending in a tough direction. You got to go there on the road. You got no chance. And then obviously things change quite a bit, even late in the season, even after the trade deadline, even when it's rosters that are stripped of household names or established players. The way that they're performing can change pretty substantially in a short period of time. So I'm not even going to waste my time looking beyond this week. This week they go against an Astros team and a Dodgers team that are both pretty well-rounded. And the Dodgers in particular have been lethal, at least offensively. The question with them is going to be more on the pitching side. So yeah, I just take it 1 week at a time when it comes to forecasting how the Marlins are going to do against them.
I like telling people that as well. I sometimes get out of hand, as you guys see, I've been talking about August 2023 since May 2023. But to Eli's point, I mean, the Marlins wrecked the Brewers season last year. That final weekend, I remember that year, they completely wrecked it, and then they won 2 games against Atlanta, which Atlanta was sorry for certain. But yeah, I'm not going to look forward to the September right now. I think I'm looking. I haven't truly looked past San Diego. I've been thinking about this next road trip, but it's just going to be nice to get the Astros series out of the way. I feel like it's been a big monkey in the Marlins' back for a minute, or at least in my eyes, looking ahead at the schedule for Miami. That they're a very tough team. I've been adamant that I think the AL champion's probably going to be from the state of Texas. I think it's going to be either one of the Rangers or Astros. But yeah, to answer your original question, I'll reiterate what I said. Just keep your head above water. Don't get swept at all. I mean, even 1-1 against Houston, I'm fine with. You lose a series, whatever. Just go out to Southern California, go beat Garrett Cooper and Miguel Rojas, and they'll be fine.
All right, thanks. And then I guess the second question, I did remember it. As far as Yuri goes, it's wondering if we could, what your thoughts were a little more on him as far as, I mean, if you want to go glass half full, happy fan. I mean, his first game back this week, a team that had already seen him, and it was his first game back. And then today, just a really tough lineup, and the knowledge that he's facing Garrett Cole, where there may have just been some pressure. How concerned are you about Perez? Like, do you think he just well, as I say this, I realize he's facing the Dodgers in start 3. So let's say in 2 starts, he'll just kind of figure this out and rattle off a few good starts. And once he starts running out of innings, do you think that the team would consider using him as an opener, actually? Once you start getting to shave things off, rather than have him just jump out of the pen in late innings, would it be just plug him in for 2, 3 frames at the start down the stretch in the second half of September?
It's a good question. I'll let someone else take it though.
Yeah. What I'll say is with him, I'm kind of looking forward to that Dodgers matchup. Weirdly, because what has bothered me a little bit, I think even right before he got sent down, but especially after, is how reliant he is just on fastball slider, just 2-pitch guy. And some of that had to do today with going against a pretty heavy righty lineup, where against righties throughout most of the season, he's been really overly simplistic with that approach instead of using like his full arsenal. So I kind of like a matchup against the Dodgers in terms of just for his own personal development, facing Freddie Freeman, facing Max Muncy. I think Jason Hayward, if he's still healthy at the moment, among others, like that's going to be a test of his full pitch mix and getting him to a spot where he is comfortable using his changeup and his curveball as well, but using those pitches to actually get the job done. And I think they'll be better off moving forward. I think just generally speaking, I'd like to see that strategy expand a little bit. So regardless of the results against the Dodgers, I think that could be pretty beneficial for him the rest of the way. We touched on this a little bit earlier in the show that inevitably he's going to run out of innings before the end of the regular season if they keep using him as a full starter. So we're going to see a transition where I think that would be the best case scenario, is that they keep him as part of this pitching staff, but just limit the have him pitch, in even shorter spurts so that he can still be available to you through the rest of September and then hopefully into October. I'd rather have that than him making a traditional start 8 more times and then be done all the way through. Because at the very least, even during this period of time, in particular against that Reds matchup, he showed that the first time through a lineup, he can still be amazing if he's just using, even if he is just fastball slider, he could be phenomenal in dominance in that role. And I'd like them to recognize that we're in this moment where they tried something creative with Jorge Lopez, and but all things considered, they are still in a kind of vulnerable spot when it comes to righty relieving once you get past David Robertson. So he has a role on this team one way or another. And yeah, it's fair to wonder exactly how effective he'll be as a starter now for the near future, a traditional starter, but he's still going, if they want to, worst case scenario, I think he's going to be hugely valuable in shorter spurts if they choose to deploy him that way.
Yeah, I said it before, Sean. I think Isaac was talking about like moving him to late relief for a bullpen or something like that. I still think they want to give this guy the opportunity to start baseball games. So whether that means it's 2 innings or 3 innings or 4 innings or 5, if they go for shorter spurts, I think it's fair to say that they're definitely going to watch his innings. But I do definitely think they want to give this guy the experience to still be the first guy on the mound. So I think they will still start him. But like you said, I think it could be more in a like glorified opener role, I guess. And no matter how well he's doing, they're going to take him out to limit those innings. So that could be of frustration to fans probably, but they're doing it for a reason. If they do decide to go that route, I understand it. But I do think they want to give this guy the opportunity to still start baseball games and not actually come in relief, because he's going to be a starter long term, and that's what they want to build towards. So I think he'll still be starting games, but how long he goes is probably going to be shortened very, very quickly here as they go down the stretch. But I think he will still be a starter.
Appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
Hey, thank you very much. All right, Ryan is in here now. Ryan, I know you got some good questions for us, man. Go ahead.
All right, y'all. So I saw the other day, this is minorly related, was going to ask about Yuri Perez before Sean did, but no problem, Sean, of course. But I was wondering, what is the current kind of status on Gerard Encarnacion, because he got called up last year, hasn't really made any noise this year. So, like, how do you guys feel about him? Because it doesn't seem like he'll get called up at all this year with the season expiring, and obviously Edwards and Johnson playing better than him. So, but he does have a lot of home runs, even though his average has been low. So what do we think about Gerard?
Minor league dub. I think that's the best way to put it. Sorry to cut you off, Carver, but I mean, this team currently finds themselves in the third wild card spot. I don't think there's any need to call him up. I don't think they will. I mean, they literally outrighted him this year. So, you know, they took him off the 40-man. That shows how they feel about the player. When you're striking out at almost 40% in you are striking out at 40% in AAA Jacksonville. Really, his only power right now is the homers. The only thing you could say good about Gerard Encarnacion is he has 22 homers on the year, and that's really about it. 91 WRC plus. They gave him a shot. They tried. He was all right. They sent him down, and obviously now you have Bell, you have Yuli, you have Troy, who's been better. So I think the Gerard Encarnacion experiment is done. Now, will he get a shot maybe with this team next year if this team isn't playing well? Maybe. If they need that, he's that. But aside from that, I mean, he's not coming up anytime soon.
What I can add to what Kevin just said about K-rate, I mean, this guy's 25 years old. He still has one minor league option year left, so he still has a year left, I think, that they can option him to the minor leagues without having to DFA him. Or risk losing him, I guess I should say. But what I would say is that what Kevin said is true, that, you know, he was striking out in AAA at a 29% clip last year, and this year in AAA he's at 39.8. And that is just not sustainable at AAA. When they call him up, he's gotten his chances, he's gotten his opportunities, and he's not really done too terribly much. There are guys that are proving it more so than him. In recent times and in recent months. So the best case scenario for him, he's a one-tool player. He does very well with power. He has a pretty good arm. His routes in the outfield are questionable, though. So he's a DH type that can provide you with a lot of thump off the bench. The Marlins have other guys that can do that, especially here in these times where they have, you know, these trade acquisitions and everything else. So the best case scenario for Gerard is to find a new home. Hopefully through trade, the Marlins can get something out of him because his power is still so good. He's got 60, 70 grade power. So the Marlins can still get something out of that. So hopefully, he's still pretty young. I mean, he's still only 25, you know, to a team that's really craving power. Maybe he gets something out of him on the prospect side or something. So my suggestion, this is nothing official, but my suggestion with the Marlins shop him for younger prospects at the or maybe something else that they need, maybe at the major league side on a lower level in the offseason. But
I don't even think he's worth that much. I don't think he's worth anything right now.
Yes.
I think just keep him in the organization.
Yeah, it's tough. You're gonna have to try to get something out of this player, but his power really is very, very good. He's got prodigal power. So, I mean, if you shop him that way, you can get something, I think. I don't think you necessarily just have to cut him. I think you can get something.
Cash. That's looking into cash. Cash. That's it.
I just want to step in to say that they cannot get anything for him. He's going to be, because they outrighted him off the 40-man, which means that they DFA'd him and nobody wanted him. But because he is so early in his service time, they were able to keep him in the organization. But what it means is he's not on the 40-man. They don't have options to use on him anymore unless they put him back on the 40-man. So he's going to be a minor league free agent this offseason. Right. So unless they re-add him to the roster, and they're not going to do that because of this, just all the issues that Kevin laid out. There's just not any strength to his game aside from that terrific all fields power, but he's not getting to that power enough. He doesn't defend enough. He's not a base runner. There's not enough there. So I expect him to be a minor league free agent. They're going to unfortunately lose him for nothing. That is what I expect.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to see them. Sorry, Kevin. It's tough to see them losing a player for nothing. This guy still does have one very good tool. So my point in saying that, Eli, was, are they going to put this guy back on the roster? You're probably right. They probably won't. But I don't know. Maybe this is one of of the minor league call-ups instead of Johnston or instead of Edwards because they want to get that extra year of service time. Like, it's possible. It's not impossible. And maybe he can come off the bench and provide a little bit of thump. Like I said, I don't know. It's tough to see the Marlins losing a player for nothing. Ryan is my. They don't like to do that. They really don't like to do that. And it would be tough to see them lose a player for nothing, especially a guy that has. It's one very good tool, but he does have a very good tool. So I don't know. Maybe they add him as a September call-up. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, like Eli said, but it's possible. I just don't know if they want to lose this guy for nothing, but we'll see what they do.
The last thing I'll quickly mention is I don't buy all of Gerard's homers. If you guys watch AAA Jacksonville games and you guys look at that outfield fence, I think half of the fish on first staff would be able to hit a homer in that ballpark. Just saying. Gerard's taller than the fence itself. I wouldn't buy any of that. Jacob Amaya was hitting bombs left and right throughout the first half of the year. And I don't buy half of those homers. Just saying. I just want to mention that.
Yeah,
that right field is right field is like worse than Yankee Stadium, man.
A lot of verdicts home runs go that way too. No knock on Peyton, but a lot of verdicts home runs go that way too. But what I would also say for Urar is that he's also hit many to left field that are into the parking lot. So I have no doubt about that guy's power. That guy's power is legitimately very, very, very good. And but that's all he has. So I mean, like I said, you would be further subjecting Troy and Edwards to AAA to call up Urar. I think, and they DFA'd him, so he's not even on the 40-man like Eli said, so you have to make room for him as well. Well, I mean, over Troy and Edwards, like I said, because the roster's to expand. But I don't know. I don't see it being something that the Marlins usually do, and they usually don't do it. They usually don't bring guys into this organization to lose them for nothing. So it's happened before. This guy's 25. He's still, I think, barely decently young. Yeah, I see you, Devin. You don't agree, but that's okay. But I don't see the Marlins losing players for nothing. They don't like to do that. So I don't know. Maybe they find room and hope he finds some power off the bench. It's not impossible. So I don't. If you see Urar come up in September, know why. Like that's what they're doing. I don't know if it would happen, as Eli said, but I don't think it's impossible.
I can name 5 prospects that they could call up before Gerard.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, they're risking losing this player for nothing. So, you got to try to do something with what is one very good.
Well, like Eli said, he doesn't really have value anymore.
Teams, literally every single team in Major League Baseball had a chance to get this guy, and he didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Wants him. He has no value. He's a minor league free agent next year. They could just wait till the offseason. If a team really wants to sign Gerard, which I doubt, they would just sign him in minor league free agents. No trade possibility there.
Yeah, it could go in a couple directions, but I wouldn't be surprised either way to see what happens with this. If he's not called up in September, like if he's not a September call-up, he's gone. You guys are right.
All right, let's see a world where he would be.
All right, we can keep going now.
All right, Devin gets to come in here right during this, unless Ryan's got any more questions. Ryan, you got anything else, real quick?
Well, I wanted to actually ask on George Soriano. I was wondering, do you guys think that there's any chance that the Marlins could try maybe next season to use him in like the starting rotation or something if they're looking for a fifth starter at the start of next season? Or like, is there any chance that we ever see George Soriano starting games for the Marlins?
No, I love George Soriano, but no, he's a reliever right now. Yeah.
And what?
You also have Meyer coming in next year. Obviously, he's going to be on some type of pitch count, pitch limit, whatever you want to call it. But
and everyone will be healthy good too. Yeah, it's going to get crowded at the beginning of opening day for sure.
Why would you pull him out of a role where he's done so well? Like in that long relief role, he's been so good. I mean, yeah, he's cleaned up a lot. Like that guy's provided a lot of quality innings after a starter has struggled. So I think he's fine where he is. When he was coming up, I liked him. Ryan, I honestly liked him in late relief, but he's done really well cleaning up for some of these starters in late relief, and he's provided a lot of quality innings for this team. So you don't fix what's not broken. I don't think he's a starter at all. He's fine where he is. He's fine as a reliever. He has 2 very good pitches and a third decent one. So I think he's fine as a multiple inning reliever, and I think that's where he's going to live. So I think he's fine with that. Guy's done a really good job. Every time I've seen that guy pitch this year, he's done a very, very good job. So I have been very impressed with him. An under-the-radar guy and a very unheralded pitcher that nobody thinks about the service that a late reliever provides. But this guy has done a lot for this team, and I'm very proud to see that from George Soriano, who has done very well with the fastball, very well with the slider, which he's always had. And then he's continuing to build on this changeup, which is also very, very good. So I like this guy a lot. I think he's fine where he is, and I think that's where he's going to be for his career, which is there's something to be said for that.
All right, thanks guys. And we'll go. I guess we'll go to Devin now.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. Good questions, Devin. You came in here laughing, and I know you got something. Just go ahead.
Shout out to Alex. The guy's loyal to his minor leaguers. That's like dedication, man. Shout out to you. I did have a little topic I wanted to discuss. Just what's your guys' thoughts on the lineup, the construction? I don't really think I have a set perfect lineup in my head, but I haven't really been too happy about the one that Skip was deployed. What would be your guys' perfect ideal lineup?
I had one that I put in our staff chat the other day. Let me find it, but I'll let Kevin go first before I find it.
You are in all 9 spots. There you go, Devin. You happy with that?
That's like 100% strikeout rate. But moving forward, I like the one they put out on Friday. I'll say that. I know Isaac was very adamant about that lineup as well. We were talking about it. And I like the one they put out on Friday. One of their better ones this year, I would say. Obviously, I like Berger towards the bottom. Soler, I've liked that lead off. I didn't mind Arise's 3 spot today or yesterday either. I didn't know he was actually. I was doing FIU stuff, but I wasn't able to watch the game. I didn't know Arise was even hitting third until Noah pointed it out to me today. So I like him there at that spot. So
yeah, I don't know where one thing I know for sure is that I don't like Jazz leading off.
I hate that. Yeah,
I think he can provide a lot of value in this lineup. Obviously, he can lengthen it as soon as he came back. 4 spot isn't exactly a perfect spot for him either, but I would much rather him be there than leading off. I think Arise is the perfect one. Like I said, when they did make these 2 acquisitions, that in my perfect world, the lineup would be Arise, Soler, Bell, I guess, would be hitting third. I didn't think give you this answer. Bell, Jazz, cleanup, Berger 5, Sanchez 6, Wendell, and etc. But yeah, I think that's how the first 5 have to go, in my opinion.
I found my lineup that I preferred. I will read it off right now. I put this out on Tuesday when we were discussing why is Soler hitting leadoff, and we found out why. I had a Rise leadoff, Jazz 2, DLC 3, Soler cleanup, Bell 5th, Berger 6, Jesus Sanchez 7th, whatever catcher you want to put in 8th. I like Birdie as the ghost leadoff at 9. I mean, no disrespect, and there's a reason why they put him at 9 sometimes. Just like getting another leadoff guy once you start to get into the game. I think I like it, although Skip did kind of allude to on Tuesday that, there's guys that don't like to bat certain spots in the lineup when discussing the change. And a big part of me starting to think that maybe Soler doesn't like batting cleanup, so I don't know if that would ever be realistic, but I feel like if I put that lineup out there, it would win some games. I don't know if you guys agree. I feel like the silence on it means that maybe you don't like it.
Yeah, I don't have a comment right now.
I do like the one that came out on Friday, though. I will agree there. I think that's probably your best lineup you've seen in a minute.
Yeah, well, I'll echo what Isaac said about the top of it. I think to me the best top 3, pretty clear to me, would be Arise, Soler, and then Josh Bell. What do you do the rest of the way? I don't feel super strongly. We're at the stage of the season, unfortunately, where it's there's not too many hard decisions to be made in terms of who plays. Like, essentially, they're platooning Wendell and Birdie, and if you look at the splits, they kind of back that up. And then it's basically an even timeshare between Stallings and Fortes. But in terms of the guys, those guys, both in my opinion, Birdie and Wendell, and then Stallings and Fortes, those guys are going to be 8-9 no matter what you do anyway. There was some enthusiasm about Birdie. I know he had a really great stretch for the first few weeks coming out of the All-Star break. But yeah, I can't justify putting him near the top of the lineup with the impact that those other guys can make in several different ways. So yeah, but to me, I'm probably higher on Jazz than a lot of people are at this moment. You guys get so it takes like one game for people to get frustrated with all the strikeouts, and then the very next game he goes 2 for 4 with a double, a home run, and he steals third base and does all that. So I'd still have Jazz. Yeah, Jazz probably that in cleanup behind Arise and Soler and Bell. And then then what you do from there, it's DLC and Sanchez and Berger in some order. I think the way that Berger is playing lately, I'd probably have Berger ahead of those outfielders and have Berger 5. So I to me with the DLC, I feel like they've been overexposing him a little bit. Yeah, to me, I really don't want DLC in the top half of the lineup at all. But he is solid, and I do want him around in those late game situations as well. But yeah, I guess now now that I talk it out, I would ideally have Arise, Soler, Bell, Jazz, Berger, DLC, then Sanchez, shortstop at 8, and your catcher at 9. That's probably what I would go with.
I'd probably flip flop Bell and Soler from what you just said, because Soler doesn't get like his on base numbers are not good. And with what Bell has done so far, his on base numbers are very, very, very good. And I think Soler has a better power tool. So I'd probably flip flop Bell to second and Soler to third. But that would be my opinion. I really don't think Soler does enough with his on base percentage to be in an on base percentage spot. That's what you want out of that spot. He doesn't walk enough. Whereas Bell also doesn't walk very much historically, but at least he's making the contact that he's making. So right now, I would go with Soler, the home run hitter, in the 3 spot, followed by obviously your biggest power hitter, but I mean, Arias, Bell, Soler, that would be my top 3, and then wherever they go from there is whatever. Honestly, like Eli said, Jazz, I think he belongs to like 5 or 6. Same thing, like Eli said. But yeah, I would flip flop Bell and Soler in that situation that you just took.
Just to touch on Jazz super quickly, you got to give credit where credit's due, and he was having a really rough day, a really rough series, and that at bat he had in that 9th inning tonight in today's ball game was honestly a spectacular at bat. I know he was ahead 2-0, and then he was taking close pitches from a very dominant closer in Clay Holmes, and I was almost so certain that he was going to strike out there. I was so certain that that was the game, that was the inning changing at bat for me. That's the one that brought the tying man to the plate in Bell. That was just the best at bat of the 9th inning, in my opinion, the most important one, I should say. So that was great to see from him.
Devin, any other questions?
Nah, I think we're good, guys. Thanks for everything you do.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. Thank you for super subscribing, of course, man. We got a couple of requests. We'll go hard cut off at 9 o'clock. We'll bring in the Dino Sir, I believe this person talked last week.
The what? Wow, okay.
That's their name. Anyways, look, floor is yours, my man. You can ask your question.
Hey, hello. You guys can hear me fine?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I have a couple of questions. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on the performances of our newish now acquisitions, both in the minor league level and in the major league level, with mainly focusing on both, I believe, Jorge Lopez and Weathers. I know Weathers did just, I believe, 1 start in the minors since we got him. But from what I heard from at least Jorge Lopez this year was that he was terrible. And I know he was an all-star, I believe, last year. But do you guys see anybody who's watched his performances last year see any similarities with his performance last year? Or do you think it's more of just a fluke, or did he just need a change of scenery? Or what do you guys think? Because I feel like he's done pretty well for us since we've acquired him, other than that one Rangers start.
The Rangers appearance. Are you talking about Lopez or Weathers?
Oh, Lopez.
I can't
believe
say
he gave
too
up
much.
a run against Cincinnati, maybe 2 runs. I think that final game. But he has been great this year. He's got time to turn it around. But Dylan Flora was also struggling too. I mean, it was a struggling player for a struggling player trade, sort of. But he's got an extra year of control, which that was the common theme amongst what Kim traded for this deadline. Players with control. The only one that that's not under contract for next year or able to play next year for the Marlins without an extension would be Robertson. I mean, Jake Berger, 5 years control. Josh Bell, player option that he'll probably opt into unless he goes scorched earth the final month. Lopez has another year, and Ryan Weathers has like years and years of puck control, like over a half decade, I believe. So Lopez, I wouldn't say he's like project B, but I don't know how he really fits in this year because he has struggled a lot this year, but I think his upside's greater than his downside, I would say.
Oh, no, he's definitely a project. He's 150% a project. I mean, you can look at stats across the board. He's allowing more hard contact this year. He's striking out less guys. Like, you know, it's a very, very, very project piece for the Marlins. They're hoping they can get something out of this guy. Maybe the change of scenery goes into it, as you said. But no, this guy is definitely, both of these guys, Weathers and Lopez. But since you asked about Lopez, these guys are definitely projects. The ceiling for this guy is pretty good. I mean, he works when he's at his best. He works all around the zone. He can elevate with heat. It looks pretty good. When he's not at his best, though, and he's not getting ground balls, and he's not, you know, commanding as best as he can, it looks really, really, really bad. So, yeah, I mean, his ground ball rate this year, 49.2. Yeah, that's as low as it's been since 2020, which, of course, was the COVID year. So, no, this guy is definitely a project. The Marlins are going to have to try to get value out of him. Can they do it? I wouldn't doubt Mel. We said that when he got here. So we'll see what he does. He needs to really command the sinker. He can elevate as well when he wants to. But, man, this guy has the ability to work the entire strike zone. He just really needs to start doing it. That's what Mel needs to get out of him, and we'll see how they go. But, yes, he's definitely a multi-year project for sure.
Okay, and just one more question. You guys were talking about, the September call-ups and with people like Johnston and Xavier Edwards. Where would you, because I feel like unluckily or luckily enough, however you want to view it, we have probably our better hitting prospects in the minor leagues log jammed by good hitters as well in the major leagues. Like Johnston is first base, I believe, and we have Bell. We just got him. And then Xavier Edwards log jammed by Arias or even Jazz because he has a little bit of center field experience. Where would you fit them into the lineup? Would you DH someone? Would you maybe try to trade someone else, or would you have them sitting the bench playing platoon? Like, what do you think their plan is as well? What do you think should be the plan moving forward with these two when you do call them up?
Well, I'll let somebody else go ahead. I know Eli just wrote about Johnston on the website, but I have passionate feelings about this, but I'll let somebody else go ahead on this one.
Yeah, with Edwards, what they tried entering this year, they liked him a lot entering this season, and that's why they wanted to give him as many routes as possible to contribute. That's why they tried to teach him center field, even though he didn't have much experience. At this point in the season, they've already kind of tabled that possibility of him playing center. Obviously, we saw him play a few games there earlier this year in the majors, and they tried in the minors to give him a lot of reps, but it didn't stick. So with him, it's an infielder, but it's not a shortstop. And as you mentioned, with some of the trade deadline activity, bring in Berger, that clogs up third base quite a bit, but clogs up third base with a good player. And then with second base, you have Arias, who, even though he's been a full-time second baseman every day this year, I do wonder what that will look like next year, even regardless of if Bell returns. I think that is the question of how flexible they'll be with Arias, knowing that he can play other positions as well, like first base, and perhaps even more DH if Soler. All these pieces are kind of interconnected, right? So if Soler leaves and you open up your DH spot a lot more, then you either have Bell playing there more or Arias playing there more, and you actually have a role for a backup second baseman of some kind. And I think that's where Edwards would fit in, because what he's doing in particular, Troy's been amazing, but what Edwards has been doing, the the contact rate and also the everything about his ability to get on base. Today, I think he got on base 5 times, 4 times with walks, and then once reaching on an error because he's so fast. Like he has certainly improved his stock this year. It's not empty numbers. It's like the numbers he made it pretty clear this year that he should be in the big leagues in some role. So with him, I'm more optimistic about them finding a spot for him on the roster next year, kind of contingent on what they do with somebody like Soler. Whether getting some reps at second base, some at third base when Berger sits against certain righties. I think he's going to have a role of some kind. The reality with him and with Troy and with every hitting prospect in this organization is that these guys, not every top prospect is created equal. Like these guys don't project as good everyday starters in the majors. Like that's not a realistic expectation for any of these guys in the system, unfortunately. This system is really dry, in particular on hitters right now. So with these are not guys that you should be thinking about moving good veteran players to make room for them, because the likely outcome is they won't be as good as the veteran players that we're talking about, whether it's somebody like Soler or whether it's trading. I mean, you could point to just about anybody trading, like say John Birdie, for example. Like is Edwards going to be better than John Birdie? I don't know. I think there's like a possibility that he isn't. They do some things similarly, but you shouldn't take for granted like what they have at the big leagues already with some of those guys. And as you kind of summed it up though with Troy, that yeah, it's really hard to carve out a role for him if Josh Bell is on the roster next year. And so we'll see how that plays out. In the unusual situation that he plays so well that he opts out and tests free agency, and that opens up room for Troy. I think the near-term decision with him, we touched on this earlier in the show, is they made the decision not to even put him on the 40-man roster last offseason. They exposed him to the Rule 5 draft and nobody wanted him. I agree with Carver that that's going to be different this time around, that he is hitting at such a high level, and he's hit at such a high level now throughout his entire minor league career that you got to protect him. Like, I do think he's going to be on this roster. I do think he's going to come to spring training with an opportunity to find some sort of role on the roster, and we'll see what opens up in terms of injuries or in terms of Bell's status, potential free agent status as well. So his path is a little bit murkier as well. The reason why like we just haven't seen much of them is because this team has progressively gotten healthier as this year has gone on. Like we've complained about this in the past, as recently as last year, about the injuries. There's one guy on this team in Jazz who unfortunately on the hitting side has been out with injury a lot this year, but otherwise look around the majors. Like the Marlins have been a fortunate team health-wise on the hitting side, and yet their hitters still haven't performed. So it is a weird situation where they've been pretty healthy on the hitting side, and yet their hitting as a whole has been bad. And you want to find ways to create more offense. And unfortunately, I don't know if these hitting prospects at the moment really move the needle all that much compared to the guys they'd be replacing.
For me, I will be brief because I know we've talked about this today in our chat, and I know we've talked about this elsewhere. If Troy Johnson is not protected from the Rule 5 draft, he, as Eli just said, he will 150, I know Isaac disagrees with this, he will 150,000% be claimed by another team.
Okay, I don't disagree with it, Capital. I'm just saying he will be selected, of course. You have to protect him. But, relax. 150,000%? No, okay, yeah, so most likely be taken in the Rule 5. I 100% agree.
Okay, so, and then the other thing that I will say, thank you, Isaac. The other thing that I will say is that this is a guy that's leading your organization right now in WRC plus 158. That's the leading WRC plus in your organization is 158. That's rough to see for a minor league organization. He's leading it. Amongst full season players, the second guy is Dane Myers at 144, who's already gotten his major league debut. And third amongst full season players is Xavier Edwards. So you're talking about, by the way, fourth is Davis Bradshaw, but I'll just leave that out for now. Anyways, that's what I would say for WRC Plus, is that this is a guy that's leading your organization, and that's that. This is a guy that has to be here. He's pushing his way. Edwards as well, I would definitely say as well. But with where Troy is in his career, If you want this guy around your organization, you got to protect him. Does that mean you call him up right now? Maybe. I think it's definitely possible. He does have defensive limitations. He can only either play left field or first base. That's the only places that he can play, for sure. And with what the Marlins have in the outfield, with Avi still around, and Soler, and Jazz, and everybody else, De La Cruz, and everybody else, Jesus Sanchez, all these guys that they have around, there's little room to be had there. So unless you call him up and just sit him on the bench, that's not what you want to do. I would really not love to see that. But is there room to make him the backup first baseman? Yuli Gurriel is very good defensively. Maybe there's a way to get him into games there. Who knows if he comes up by the end of the year, but you do have to protect him before that deadline. You 100% have to do that and put him on the 40-man roster. So is he going to contribute to a playoff team? Maybe. Is he not? Maybe. Is he going to be on the 40-man roster by the time that deadline comes? I 100% think so. So that's the guy that they're really going to have to point to, because I think he will definitely go if they don't. And I don't think they want to lose him for nothing. So, Edwards has a little bit more positional flexibility. You could put him in center field. You could probably put him in the corners if you needed to in left field. You could put him at third base. You can put him at shortstop if you want to. That guy has a little more positional flexibility. I think we'll see Xavier Edwards play more games for the Marlins before the end of the season, whether there's an injury or whatever it may be. He just has a lot of flexibility. So I think I would see more of a chance for Edwards to play major league games for the Marlins than Johnston this year. But Johnston will be on the 40-man by the time that Rule 5 deadline comes, for sure.
Okay, and because I just feel like there's a fear that I have, and hopefully maybe some other people do have, that you take these hot players in the minor leagues, and even, for example, you equate it to something like sending everybody down. You know, I feel like you bring them up here just to sit on the bench because we have so many of their spots taken. I feel like that would be detrimental to their development just as much as leaving them down there would be detrimental for us. So I feel like the organization as a whole is sort of, caught in between, and I don't believe either choice is something that would benefit us either way unless we get real lucky some way or another,
I would agree in the sense that you look at what happened to Jacob Amaya earlier this year, and you looked at what happened to Xavier Edwards earlier this year when he was up. I mean, those guys got called up after tearing it up in the minors. It was all cool, and then never really played. So luckily, they both bounced back fairly well. I know Amaya was hitting a rough stretch there for a second, but I believe he's gotten it together. But I see what you're saying there for sure. But it is a team competing for a playoff spot down the stretch. There's not really a spot for any of them.
I have a brief question to either Carver, Eli, or Kevin. Who offensively on the position player side in the system has the best on-base ability? I'm not talking about hit tool. Edwards, Troy, they're striking the ball, but they don't walk a lot. Who has the best on-base? Who has the best eye? I know Carver, you love Jeff McNeil. So who's the guy like that they have?
Nassim, right?
No. I would say that we just talked about it. I would say the best pure approach and hit tool in this organization right now, if you're going by just approach, hit tool, ability to limit strikeouts, ability to just take what you can get at the plate and work counts. He's definitely attacked more early in counts, as I told you guys last night. He's definitely attacked more early in counts this year, and he's done very well with that. But I would definitely say the best pure approach hitter in the organization is Johnston. It is definitely Troy Johnston to me.
I remember playing on base, not just pure hitter. I'm saying
Edwards. I would go to the best on base. Edwards is striking out at a 5.6%, walking 11.3, 4.3 OBP.
I'm not saying strikeout numbers. Arise doesn't strike out, but he also doesn't get on base a lot. I'm saying who's got the best on base skills on the farm?
I knew where your question was.
Thank you.
Edwards. My opinion.
What's Edwards' walk percentage?
11.3.
Oh, yeah, maybe it is.
And he has a 4.43 OBP.
But Troy can go gap to gap more. Troy has a little bit more power than Edwards. The bat-to-ball skills for Troy, I think, are better than Edwards. Edwards does probably have better patience, as you just said, Kevin. But the best bat-to-ball skills and on-base guy in this organization right now today is Johnston to me. And I want to...
You know me. I will not argue with you when it comes to Troy. So,
but, higher ceiling, sure. But you can't say he's got better bat-to-ball skills than Edwards. He literally doesn't strike out.
I think with the adjustments that Troy has made, it's such a unique approach to, like, you look at him with his front foot. I'm going to go long. I won't go long on this, I promise, because I know you guys got more stuff to get to. But look at how he has. Isaac, go watch a AAA game, or any of you guys that are listening, not just Isaac. Go watch a AAA game and look how he has his front hip turned in to the pitcher when he starts to hit. That is so unique, and then he moves it out as the pitch is coming to him. That is so unique and such a unique timing trigger for this guy. It's crazy good how he is able to make that work, and so cool. So when he does make it up, or maybe we'll interview him before he makes it up, that's something to ask him about, is how do you make this such a unique approach work? And it's something that he's developed here in the last year. He didn't used to hit like that. He used to have a much different approach. So to get better in your approach and how unique that he is, I think that this is definitely a guy that is very good. And as Kevin said earlier today, Isaac, I know you saw this, his bat-to-ball profile translates so well to Major League Baseball. I'm not saying this guy's going to come up and be a 300 hitter. I'm not saying that. But I think this guy could come up and immediately be an impact to the organization. So with that being said, like I said, I really do think that the best on-base profile between hit, block, everything else that we just said, I think that this is the best pure hitter in the organization and the best on-base guy in the organization over Edwards, even though Edwards has the patience over Troy. But I really think Edwards I'm sorry, I really think Troy is the guy that I point to say that, man, that guy's the best on-base guy in the org right now.
I mean, I'm just failing to find a comp for Troy, a big league comp, because I know he's got doesn't have a lot of power, not a lot of speed, a good hit tool. But, those home runs are going to go down when he's not playing in the AAA Jacksonville stadium with a joke of a right field porch. Yeah. So I'm failing to find a comp for him. If Eli, if someone has one for him, Troy. Like a first baseman that doesn't have a lot of power. I don't know.
No, I think long term to a corner. I don't think he has the power to stick at first base, but
I don't want to disrespect Troy, but would Coop be the comp? Not funny.
No, he doesn't have the power of Cooper. So
no disrespect, Troy. What do you mean, Coop? That would be great. I love Troy. So if he became anything like Garrett Cooper, that is the biggest win of home developed players that they've ever had. That would be the best thing they've ever developed. So yes, hopefully he ends up like Cooper. I wish he could be Cooper. I hope he could be better.
All right, the Dinos, sir. You got any more questions, man?
No, none. Thank you guys all for the answers.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. Thank you for listening. We'll go. We got our last speaker here. We usually do at 9 p.m. hard cutoff, more or less. So we'll end it here. But first, let's get this final question in. The floor is yours.
Thanks, guys. This is the first time I've spoken to one of these. I went to the game on Friday, disappointing that they lost. I have two questions. My first question is, where they are right now in the wild card standings, how many wins do you think that they would need by the end of the season to make the wild card?
I think we spoke about this maybe 2 spaces ago.
Yeah, I think it was last week.
Right.
Yeah. And I think Eli said it would be maybe a little bit lower than usual, and I think that's how I see it. I don't think it'll be 88, 89. I think it'll be more like 85, 84, 86,
right
around there.
Last year, let me just pull it up to triple check myself. Last year, the Phillies got in that final spot with 87. It's going to be lower than that because of the way that several of these other teams are totally imploding. The way that the Diamondbacks have done it, and the only reason they turned it around is because they ran into the Padres, and it doesn't look like the Padres are going to be a real threat here. And the Reds, are they about to get swept in a doubleheader today, potentially? They continue to free fall as well. Long story short, I think 84 is the magic number. I think 84 likely gets it done. 85 should be a lock. So that's what you're talking about. For a team at this moment, they are 5 games over. If they finish 6 games over, I think if they just win the slight majority of their games the rest of the way, I think that's enough. I think that would get them in.
And then my other question is, a guy that I thought could come up at the September 1st and help the shortstop position, Jake Mamaya. What are your thoughts on him coming up?
He struggled. He struggled in the second half. Ever since his call down, actually, his demotion, we could say, is when he has struggled. I really wouldn't call him up right now, to be honest with you. I would call up Edwards, and I would just call up Edwards over him right now, to be honest with you. And right now, Wendell is where he is.
barely fine. I know Wendell has struggled, but he still provides you an amazing glove, fantastic glove at shortstop. And if we've seen Wendell at times this season be a good hitter, so I would still count on Wendell in that Birdie Wendell platoon we're seeing. And obviously, I like Edwards, so I would like Edwards or Johnson as to call it if you're gonna call it the hitter.
Well, the other distinction between Edwards and Amaya is the running. The fact that Edwards has been an amazing base runner down there. That's a dimension of this team that is still kind of lacking. If you wonder why at this moment, why the offense is so up and down even now, aside from Jazz and Birdie, they just do not get very much base running value out of anybody. And Edwards is a guy that late in games, he can steal you bases. He can go take extra bases that few other guys on this roster can do. And then he can at least fake it at several different positions in those later innings if you want to continue him in the game. Like him more so than anybody else. That's why I'm pretty confident that he's the one that's going to get an opportunity later on, because he fits in really well as a role player. People want him. I know the dream is that he settles into a more prominent role moving forward. For the here and now, at least there is a niche that Edwards can fill more so than Amaya. Amaya, at best, like an average-ish runner. He had those Miggy Rowe comps when they made that trade for Miggy Rowe, and those comps run pretty deep in terms of base running as well. He's not quite as speedy as your traditional shortstop is.
You're right. I would definitely point to Edwards because of positional flexibility and then, like you said, speed. But Amaya definitely has the glove, and man, he's been pretty good in August. His August has been pretty good so far. 310, 375, 452. He had 2 hits tonight, so it's not impossible. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say that that Edwards is the guy over him. Edwards only fakes it at shortstop. Amaya is a great shortstop. But I think Amaya definitely is a longer-term piece versus Edwards, who's just been great all year. So, positional flexibility, speed, and then just the ability with the athleticism that Mr. Edwards has to at least fake it at shortstop. I think Edwards is definitely your guy over Amaya, but Amaya's going to be interesting next year, so we're going to see what he has then.
Any other questions?
Sorry, just one more.
You're good.
If the Marlins do make the postseason, what seed would you want them to get in the wild card? Depending on who they play in the first round, or if they win the first round and make it to the division series?
It's a good question because I think there's benefits to everything, but my main thing has just been avoiding the Braves because, look, you get the 4th seed, you get to host a wild card round. That's really cool, but you win that, you got to go play the Braves in the NLDS. So I think I prefer the 6. You go to the Central winners home, and then if you win that, you go to LA. I think that gives you at least a little bit of a better path to get to the NLCS than having to go through Atlanta. Because I think Atlanta's probably going to win the World Series this year, if I had to guess.
Well, yeah, because from what I understand, if you're the 4 or 5 seed, you face each other, like the 5th. If you're the 4th, you face the 5th, etc. Yeah. And then you face the Braves, assuming that they're the number 1 team in the National League. So I think 6 isn't the worst one, except you just don't guarantee to host a playoff game, which is something that I'm sure Bruce Sherman and everyone wants in Miami. But I think in that instance, you'd be facing the Brewers or whatever central team, like Grant said, comes out of there, and then you go and face the Dodgers, assuming that they're the number 2 seed, which it looks like they will be. So I think 6 is the best seed for this team in particular.
Weren't the Phillies the 6th seed last year? I mean, it worked out for them, right? At least a little bit.
I don't know.
The fact that they don't reseed the teams is a weird added aspect. I feel like they should do that the way the NFL does it. I feel like the 6th seed, if you win your series, should have to go to the 1 seed and benefit the 4 or 5 seed. But, you find a loophole, I guess you take it, right? So I think my answer would actually be 6 seed. If you asked me that a few months ago, I don't know if I would have agreed, because I really want the Marlins to host a playoff series. But if you win your wild card series, you're hosting at least 1 game. Even if you get swept out of the building, you at least get game 3. So I say take your best chance to win your wild card series. Although I guess we haven't really talked about the 5 seeds. If you get the 5 seed, you have to go on the road. I guess that would actually give you a slightly easier path, depending on who the 4 seed is, to just get to the next round. But you still have to play the Braves. So I think my philosophy is just avoiding the Braves. They're too good. They're probably going to win the World Series this year, unless either one of the Texas teams gets them or the Dodgers go scorched earth in October. But it wouldn't be in the Marlins' best interest to play them in the postseason.
What do you mean? The Marlins have the Braves number, dude. They crushed that team.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, in my dreams, they do.
Man, we have Navi from Marlins Discord listening in, and he just put out a comment in the Discord about why this is still going after more than 2 hours. And I don't have a great answer for that other than people are still listening. If everybody stopped listening and left, then I guess we would stop talking. But there still is an audience for our content, I guess. So that to answer your question, Navi, as long as there's still people here that want to listen to this. But we're about to wrap up anyway. I know LMF, he sent me a message privately as well. He wanted me to point out that last year, the Marlins did not win their 62nd game until September 18th. They're more than a month ahead of last year's pace in terms of reaching that number. Aside from that, is there anything else, LMF, that you wanted to add in closing here?
No, just everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, and I'm driving it, so keep jumping on. Just keep in mind that don't live and breathe by every game. Don't get all negative. Keep your hopes up. Keep your dreams up, because this doesn't happen. We haven't had an over 500 season since 2009. So this is not something to take for granted. It's fun. Keep the energy up, and we'll see you at the ballpark after you super subscribe to Fish on First for $3 or more on fishonfirst.com. Cheers.
Hey, that's pretty good. We'll go out on that. So thank you to everyone who spoke. Thank you to those who are still listening. If you listen the entire 2 hours, we're going to give you a medal. I mean, it's great that we do have an audience after this. I mean, we talked about Troy Johnston for half an hour, and we still got 50 people listening. It's awesome.
Great conversation. Why wouldn't we talk about that?
Oh, I don't know. But in terms of next week, it kind of hit me while we were listening to this. It's a 4-10 game next week, so we might fire these spaces up right after the game ends. I think we might actually do a different time next week. That just now hit me. We'll talk about that amongst the staff. But either way, we'll see you next Sunday. We got all sorts of content coming out this week. Biggest week yet probably for the Marlins. So make sure you guys watch and read Fish on First content. So thank you very much. We'll see you next week.